Giovanni Ribisi didn't crash into Hollywood with a bang. He arrived more like a whisper, quiet, curious, and already deep in the rhythm of performance before most kids could memorize their multiplication tables. Born on December 17, 1974 in Los Angeles, he didn't have to travel far to find the film industry. It was already in his living room. His father, Al Ribisi, was a keyboardist in the psychedelic rock band People, a man more comfortable in sound studios than spotlights. His mother, Gay Landrum, wasn't a celebrity either, but she was deeply entrenched in the industry managing actors and screenwriters. Together, they formed a home that was less about glamour and more about process. Not the kind of family to obsess over fame, but the kind that asked, did the scene feel real? Did you tell the truth with that line, Giovanni was a twin? His sister Marissa Ribisi, born just moments apart, would go on to act in films like Dazed and Confused. His younger sister Gina followed a similar creative path, becoming a respected voice actor. You might think they were a showbiz family, and in some ways they were, but not in the glitzy red carpet sense. Their house was filled with scripts, guitar chords, late-night rehearsals, and auditions in sweatpants. What set Giovanni apart, even from an early age, wasn't a desire to be seen. It was a hunger to understand. While some kids dreamed of Oscar speeches, he was fascinated by what made people believe them. He would watch performances and then replay them in front of the mirror, not to imitate, but to dissect. What did the actor do with his hands? Where did he pause? How did the silence feel? He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy, but he had presence even as a kid. Teachers said he had an old soul. He spoke less, but when he did, it was thoughtful, measured. He started doing commercial work at age 8, not because he begged for it, but because people kept noticing him. His expressions, his focus, his stillness. By the time he was a preteen, he had already racked up appearances in Highway to Heaven, The Twilight Zone, and My Two Dads. These weren't just resume lines, they were training grounds. While other kids memorized math homework, Giovanni was memorizing character beats, watching grips reset the lighting, absorbing every twitch of the director's eyebrow. By the early 1990s, Giovanni Ribisi had become what casting directors love to call dependable. He wasn't flashy, but he always delivered. He could play nervous, angry, clueless, even borderline psychotic, and make all of it feel uncomfortably real. That's rare. Most actors try to make characters likable. Giovanni made them truthful. You might not want to have lunch with his characters, but you'd believe they existed. TV noticed first. He landed guest roles in shows that are now cultural landmarks, The Wonder Years Married, and with children, The X-Files, and most memorably Friends, as Frank Buffet Jr., Phoebe Buffet's half-brother. He turned what could have been a throwaway character into one of the most endearing weirdos on the show. He was awkward, yes, but never insincere. There was a purity to Frank Jr., the kind of naive honesty that makes you laugh and feel weirdly protective of him. That became Ribisi's signature unpolished empathy. He didn't play quirky for laughs, he played it like someone whose heart didn't know the rules. And it worked. People noticed, directors noticed. Not because he was loud, but because he lingered in a scene. Even after he left the frame, something stayed behind. His film career started quietly, but not insignificantly. In Richard Linklater's Suburbia, he played Jeff, a college dropout caught between ambition and apathy. The role felt personal, like Giovanni knew exactly what it meant to be too smart to settle, but too lost to move forward. And then came That Thing You Do, a Tom Hanks-directed music flick where Giovanni stepped in last minute to replace another actor and still managed to leave an impression as the anxious original drummer. But it was 1998's Saving Private Ryan that changed everything. The moment Giovanni Ribisi stepped onto the beach of Normandy in Saving Private Ryan, something subtle yet seismic happened. He wasn't a frontline soldier charging through the bullets, he was Irwin Wade, a medic caught in the slowing churn of horror. A man tasked to save lives, but without a prayer of saving his own. It's easy to underestimate a small role in a Spielberg war epic, but Ribisi transformed it. When he loaded a wounded soldier into a makeshift stretcher, when he clutched his hands and tried to comfort a dying teen. There was truth behind the eyes. He didn't look trained. He looked frantic. Frantic but gentle. Fragile but focused. And in the endless noise of war cries and gunfire, he anchored the scene with human fragility. Critics might have expected tears or heroism. Instead, Giovanni gave us emptiness, an emptiness that screamed, The kind of performance that refuses to let the audience look away because it doesn't allow them to. His Wade was not an action hero. He was a human being collapsing inward while holding the weight of others. That role clicked something. Hollywood looked closer. Directors started to say, "We need an actor who can make me feel, not just perform." And Giovanni Ribisi became that actor, quiet, powerful, unforgettable. From that point on, he didn't need to be the lead. He owned supporting roles. In Gone in 60 Seconds, he was the quirky fixer who could disarm cars and nerves alike. In Boiler Room, he was the ambiguous but mesmerizing guy in the sauna. In Lost in Translation, he was the fast-talking local guide who pop-up advises, with sideways charm even in his brief screen time. What connects these characters isn't genre, it's intensity. Giovanni brought depth to scenes that might have been forgettable. He showed up. He lingered. He left a mark. And when the natural reboot-ish gangster squad came along, showcasing ensemble chaos, he walked into a room full of stars, Josh Brolin, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and still held his ground. Not by speaking loud, but by holding still. You noticed him. He wasn't playing to be seen. He was playing to be felt. Let's get something straight, Parker. Selfridge was never meant to be the hero of Avatar. He wasn't the warrior. He wasn't the Na'vi. He didn't ride banshees or bond with trees. No, he was the guy in the suit. The corporate liaison. The middle manager with a tie and a moral blind spot. And somehow, Giovanni Ribisi made him fascinating. When James Cameron cast Ribisi in Avatar 2009, some people scratched their heads. Wait, the quirky guy from Friends and Boiler Room is going to stand in the same frame as Sigourney Weaver and Zoe Saldana. But that's what Cameron does best, he sees layers. And with Ribisi, he saw a man who could turn a corporate cliché into a human contradiction. Parker Selfridge isn't cartoonishly evil. He's not twirling a mustache or laughing maniacally. He's worse. He's relatable. He's that guy in every office who smiles too easily when money talks louder than morals. Ribisi played him with the perfect blend of passivity and discomfort. He wasn't proud of the destruction, he just didn't fight it. And that strangely made him more disturbing. While Jake Sully was riding dragons and Colonel Quaritch was flexing his militarized rage, Selfridge sat behind bulletproof glass sipping coffee and calculating costs. And still, Ribisi made him feel dangerous. Because indifference is dangerous. In a world full of fire and fangs, Selfridge represented the quiet rot of corporate apathy. And here's the twist: people remembered him. Not because he shouted, but because he felt real. So when Avatar: The Way of Water 2022 and the upcoming Avatar: Fire and Ash began to expand, the universe audiences weren't surprised to see Parker Selfridge return. Ribisi had built a character too recognizable to disappear. He wasn't just the bad boss. He was the guy who lets bad happen with a signature grimace and a shrug. Giovanni Ribisi didn't need blue skin or motion capture to stand out in Avatar. He just needed a good script, a bad conscience, and that haunting stillness that always seems to say, "Yeah, I know, but I'm still doing it." Here's the thing about Giovanni Ribisi. The more you try to define him, the more he slips away. He's never been the loudest in the room, never the tabloid favorite, never the social media darling. And yet directors keep calling. Writers keep writing roles with his name already penciled in. Because in an industry built on noise, Giovanni is silence, and silence, when used right, is deafening. Off-screen, he's elusive. He rarely gives interviews. When he does, he speaks in short, thoughtful bursts. He doesn't offer headlines, he offers texture. He talks about characters like they're ghosts he's met. He's intensely spiritual, a practicing Scientologist, but never one to preach or pose. He's also a father, a quiet family man. You won't see paparazzi camping outside his house, not because he hides, but because he's too real to chase. And he's not just an actor. Ribisi's artistic spirit leaks into other worlds. He's directed music videos. He's narrated documentaries. He owns a design studio, Stereo D, which worked on 3D film conversions for Titanic and The Avengers. He's the kind of artist who sees no line between performance and creation, only levels of intimacy. What's strange and beautiful is how he disappears into roles. When you see Ribisi on screen, you don't think that's Giovanni Ribisi. You think, who is that guy? And why can't I stop watching him? That's his legacy. Not fame, not fortune, but friction. He plays the parts most people avoid: the insecure brother, the corporate coward, the moral ghost. And he makes them unforgettable, not by turning them into heroes, but by showing you what they cost to live as. And maybe that's why he keeps getting cast in Avatar. Because in a world of blue giants and flying dragons, you still need someone who reminds us the scariest villains aren't the ones who fight. They're the ones who say nothing and still sign the papers. Giovanni Ribisi may not be the loudest name in Hollywood, but he's the one that stays with you long after the credits roll. He doesn't need big speeches or heroic poses, he just needs a moment. And when he gets it, he leaves a mark no spotlight can outshine. So if this story changed how you see him follow the rest, because the quiet ones, they're the ones who hit the deepest,